If you follow sports at all, you know it's pretty well documented that the Maricopa County owns Chase Field, and the tenants are, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks. And there is an agreement in the city of Phoenix with the Footprint Center, the Phoenix Suns, and the city of Phoenix owning that building. And one relationship seemed to be set in stone and working very, very well. The other was a little bit tumultuous for a while. So trying to come up with solutions so the D-backs have a home and to keep them in downtown Phoenix, the state legislature, Representative Jeff Weniger, is running a bill, and it is HB 2704, and it would create the ability for the D-backs to capture some of the sales taxes in their building and a way to fund some of the things that are happening. So to clarify from the D-backs point of view what is actually happening is the President and CEO Derrick Hall. D. Hall, thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's we're excited about this. We're encouraged. We're enthused. I mean, Jeff Weniger did a nice job with the bill. It provides us with that public-private partnership that I've talked about with you over and over. Just the need for one. We're looking at putting in hundreds of millions of dollars of our own into the ballpark, and to get assistance now, and for it coming really legislatively led from the state, where there's already precedent in the state for such a mechanism, is the encouraging part. And, you're not talking about a huge sum of money each year, but it allows us to borrow off of that too, just knowing that steady stream of funding is coming in.
So let's talk about the numbers. So 5% of a 5.6% sales tax, you would be able to collect that and capture that of the money that's spent inside of Chase Field. The 0.6%, it says here, and this is where it's a little confusing to some people, 0.6% that funds education and was approved by voters in 2000, according to the team, remains. Will there be any reduction in funding for schools because of this change?
I'm glad you asked. And the answer is no. I mean, that was very important to us as we prioritized with the representative when he was creating the language that we did not want to touch that portion that has been allocated to education. So you're exactly right. Of the 5.6 that the state collects, 0.6 of that goes to education. We wanted that to be held harmless. And so, we're looking at the 5% of sales tax. In addition to sales tax, it's income tax that is generated from our employees, our players, and employee spouses if they co-file, if they joint file, which is a nice way for us again to contribute to that fund. And it's coming at the perfect time, Mike, because our lease expires at the end of 27, and we've been looking at alternatives around Maricopa County. We want to stay at Chase Field. I mean, it's been around for over 27 years. The memories that have been created there, it's where we should be, and the solution is necessary. It's not a new tax. As you said yesterday, there's not a tax increase. I think that's very important. All of this money has been generated at Chase Field with our baseball games or our non-baseball events like concerts, like bowl games, et cetera. It's just merely a reallocation or redesignation of those dollars to go back to Chase Field, not to the D-backs, not to our operations, but to Chase Field, so that we can make it state-of-the-art, because our fans deserve it to be. And when you look at our ballpark compared to the other 29, we're pretty far down that list, but you can understand why. It's an aged ballpark. We've done the best we can in making it very safe and beautiful, but there's so much more that we need to do and can do. And now this will give us the ability to take our money and put it to good use. Now, most of it, as you and I have discussed too, most people won't even see, Mike, because it's so much infrastructure, right? It's going to be fixing the HVAC and fixing plumbing and pipes and, the stuff that's not so interesting to folks, but fixing concrete, changing the seats, all of that. However, where we can do fan-facing upgrades, we're definitely going to do it. And this would allow us to stay there forever, which is what we want.
So that leads to this question. How are the lease negotiations going with the county? Because that's where there's been a bit of a back and forth. There's a brand new board now. The County Board of Supervisors looks a lot different than it did just last year. How are those negotiations going with the county on that lease?
Yeah, great question. And we haven't had many conversations. We were waiting till after the election. We're going to start meeting with the new members as well. But I think seeing how this goes, and it's very, positive so far. There's a lot of momentum behind this bill. There's tons of positivity. So, knock on wood, assuming that it gets approved, then we have to really focus on and shift our focus back to what does a lease look like? Do we just continue with the lease that we have and extend it, we'll have those conversations. But let's get through this phase as quickly as we can.
Well, is it putting the cart before the horse and asking this question that if you're going to make this kind of, like you said, the D-backs are going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars of their own money, this money being redirected into the stadium for upgrades and for the things that are necessary, do you want to make that kind of a commitment as an organization without knowing you're going to have a long-term lease in that building? If you have 2 years left in the lease, why would you make a big-time commitment in the next 2 years in a building you may not be in?
No, it's a fair question, but I think, all three municipalities, when you think about the state, the city, and the county, they've all expressed interest in keeping us there. So I believe we could get to the solution. This is the biggie. This is the public-private partnership we were seeking. And then going back to the county, who's been our partner since day one, and saying, okay, now we're able to improve your asset, right? We're doing this. The state is doing this so that we can improve the asset that you own. Let's figure out a way that works for both of us to continue.
Okay, so then I just want to recap for the people that are maybe just jumping in or some that may have some confusion. There will not be extra taxes collected from anybody going into Chase Field. It's not a tax increase at all. It's just a redistribution of the existing tax dollars that will be coupled with private investment from the D-backs for improvements that are needed at Chase Field. Did I express it right?
You expressed it perfectly. Yeah, it's a tax recapture. It's just a redesignation. We had looked in the past at that theme park funding. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where it would have been a tax increase, and we would have been taxing our fans, our best customers. We could have added on top of sales tax anywhere from 1% to 9%. Well, that we weren't really excited about. We did not want to add a new tax, and this avoids it, which is great. So, Jeff Winnegar introducing this. There's no new tax. There's no additional tax. It's merely taking everything that is generated sales-wise there at the ballpark and putting it right back into the ballpark. It makes a lot of sense, and we're already doing that, as we said, in the state.
Yeah, I listen, I'm someone that is a big believer, as you and I have talked about. I am a big believer in the major sports teams being here because it's not just of what you do on the field, it is, or on the court. It's also what you're doing in the community. I think you're such a big part of the culture. But let me ask a question that I don't think is your concern necessarily. It's a state concern. But the 5.6% tax that's been collected, according to the news story, said that it funds education, which you've addressed, but healthcare for low-income residents, prisons, and other programs. Have you gotten any word about how whatever those programs are, will be addressed so there's not cuts to other citizens? Is that something that's been talked about with you?
Well, what we've talked about is the ability to generate more sales tax around the ballpark so that those can be fulfilled. And we're going to be doing that. As we invest in the ballpark, there's going to be more revenues. And as we as an organization develop around the ballpark, that won't be a part of the sales tax that goes back into the ballpark. That'll be a new sales tax that goes back to the state, city, and county. And, of course, all the businesses that thrive around us, and the sales tax are going to continue to increase because of our presence and because of the investment we're making into Chase Field. So we plan on fulfilling those shortfalls with new generated taxes and new development as well, which will bring all new taxes.
And that's my last question, because I know you have somewhere you need to be. My last question then is about the revenue that is generated because of the D-backs and because of Chase Field. I don't want to ignore that what the businesses in downtown Phoenix depend on throughout the summer months when the D-backs are playing, the concerts, the Hondo Rodeo that was there, the major events you put on. Do you have a number of the kind of revenue that's generated to the businesses around Chase Field?
We've got impact studies, and I can get those to you. They're really strong. I mean, we're proud of it. Not only the impact that we have on those businesses and the lift that they get through sales, but and it's everything. It's restaurants, it's hotels, it's the retail shops. But in addition to that, like you had mentioned, we're going to be surpassing $100 million in community giving soon. I can't wait for that. The jobs that we create and provide, the economic impact for the entire region, all of that makes us very proud. So I appreciate you seeing that and understanding that. And I think this is a great thing for all of us. And by the way, everything you do for the community too, Mike, I like to say that when I'm on with you. People just don't know. I was thinking the other day, here I am. I've been president of the Phoenix Police Reserves Foundation, and I show up for their graduation and awards ceremony one night. There's Broomhead.
Yeah.
He's emceeing it. You're everywhere. So thanks for all you do and what you do out at the Open and everything else. And for veterans, you're incredible.
Well, Derrick, I appreciate it. And thanks for coming on today to clarify for people and answer a lot of these questions. I know you're getting pounded with them, but hopefully this gets done. The D-backs have a home for the long term, and you guys get back on track, and we'd love to see you guys in another World Series.
That would be huge, and I appreciate it. Yeah, this is the type of mechanism that could keep us here forever, and that's what we want to do. We want to be here forever in that home.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.